very good evening to everyone who's watching us on the Step Up live show. Today we have somebody very special. She's Jenny Shah. She's somebody who's a company secretary. Today, the session is going to involve a lot of information on career aspirants in the area of company secretary. And we welcome Jenny to the Step Up live show. How are you, Jenny?
I'm fine, Komal. Thank you. Good evening to everyone.
And everyone who's watching this today, the agenda of this complete session would be that Jenny, somebody who's been experienced in this role for a long time, and company secretary, what I know is something which is a very prestigious role within an organization. And how can you reach there? I think there will be some questions that will come up from everybody who's watching us on Facebook as well as on YouTube. So please do put in your questions in the comment section. And this session is actually completely a non-profit. We requested Jenny to come over on our request that please come over, share some knowledge. So do subscribe, press the subscribe button with the bell icon, which you see on YouTube, and like and share this video. So let's start, Jenny. First, I'd like to make people aware about what is the role of a company secretary in an organization, because people are a little confused by the word company secretary. I mean, really, how does it work? So can you share some light on it?
Sure, I'll do that. Company secretary basically is a compliance officer in the company who's responsible for complying with various laws, basically the corporate laws, which mainly involve the Companies Act, the SEBI regulations, the secretarial standards. So company secretary basically is sometimes confused with a personal secretary. So I like to say that a personal secretary is very different. The role of a company secretary is that the company secretary is the secretary to the company, that is the board of directors, and not to any individual.
Right.
So though the role may be compared in the sense that how a secretary schedules meetings, prepares agenda, prepares minutes, so same way the company secretary also does the same thing, scheduling meeting of the board, the shareholders of the company, but it is on a basically for the board and not for any individual director or an individual person. So preparing agenda, preparing minutes, filing of forms after the meetings are over. So these are the basic, jobs that a company secretary does.
Right. So just looking at that, I mean, it's a good point that you clarified to people, because I think a lot of
No,
people.
because when I completed my CS some 15 years back,
Right.
when somebody would ask me, "What are you?" I would say, "A company secretary." "Acha, secretary ho?" "No, secretary nahi ho, company secretary ho." So now this, I mean, the role of company secretary is known to people in a better way, but at that time it was not so.
Correct. Correct. What I also recently learned from a lot of people, I mean, when they talk about CA and CS. So then I was a little curious to know that, I mean, these are all both financially, legally uh, positions within an organization, and they hold a lot of respect. A lot of people are vying to come up to such roles, as I've been told, and I've gained a little bit of knowledge. Coming to the second part, that Jenny, what are the qualifications, or maybe is there an entrance exam, or is there a course that you have to go through? If somebody is watching us through Facebook as well as YouTube, can become a company secretary. Could you share some details on it?
Sure, I'll do that. See, company secretary profession is basically governed by the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. It is a professional body which conducts the exams for the profession of the company secretary. So there is an entrance exam which has come up recently. Earlier, 10th, 12th pass student was able to give a foundation exam and get into the company secretary course, and a graduate could directly get into the course. I mean, at least the registration. So now it is different. Now both even the 12th pass and the 15th pass candidates have to first give an entrance exam, which has come this year only, come up this year, like how CAs also have the entrance exam. So it's in the same manner. And you have to pass the entrance exam and then get into the executive level. So it is a prerequisite. You have to first pass the test and then register yourself with the institute for the first level, that is the executive level.
Right.
And then the
So,
professional level. I mean, there are two levels after that, the
right.
executive and the professional level.
Correct. So I think it looks like quite a competitive environment here, because what I understand from you and also from some other colleagues, that so what could be somebody's strategy, I mean, to get through this entrance examination, because I've been told that it is quite competitive and quite tough. So could you guide some people, I mean, whoever are watching, how
The
should
entrance exam, because it has come up very recently, so I am not so. I mean, I have never given an entrance exam. I have done my foundation. So in
right?
foundation, same like the entrance, we had some four subjects which had to be like business communication. Some general subjects are there, so that you have to study and you have to appear for the exams. There were four papers at that time, but now they have made this test as an online test, which four different subjects in the same way. But now it's an online test. Earlier it
Absolutely.
was not. So in order to study for this, CS is thoroughly I mean, you require a lot of dedication to do any professional course, whether CA or CS. So a lot of reading. They give you the material. Materials are provided by the institute. You have to thoroughly read and understand and appear for the exam.
Right. So coming to the next part of the company secretary role, as in, if you could tell our viewers about, I mean, what is the kind of role within the organization? Because you slightly touched upon during the introduction part, but if you could give a little more details about, I mean, what is a normal day in a company secretary's role? I mean, what does it involve? So that people get a gist. I mean, if they want to get aspire, I mean, they get inspired really with this conversation. So what would be that?
See, company secretary role is basically a compliance role. So it starts with holding of meetings. Once there is a meeting, you have to start preparing your agenda. You have to prepare, you have to find out what are the items to be taken up in the meeting. Then you schedule the meeting on that day. You conduct the meetings, you file the forms, you prepare the agenda. So on a normal day, a company secretary would basically, do all these things. The preparation starts much in advance. If the meeting is next month, we start our preparation from this month onwards only. So it's an ongoing process. We have to work on various items that have to be, taken up in the agenda. And even to prepare the minutes, we have to give time. We have to read our laws. We have to, do a lot of reading on the items that are to be put. So normally a company secretary does this. Apart from that, he has a lot of returns and forms to be filed with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Ministry of Corporate Affairs is basically the law making body. As far as the company secretary is concerned, and there are circulars, notifications coming up every day, off and on now, because of the changes that are taking in the regulatory environment.
Correct.
So a company secretary is continuously busy, updating himself and with the new requirements, filing new forms every day. So it's, getting, initially when I did my CS, it was not like this. It was very easy and simple. I
Correct.
mean, not the of course, but the work did not involve so much of efforts on the part of the company secretary. But
Right.
now it's very different. Initially, a team of two people would be sufficient in a department to do the work, but now even four are less. So that is the kind of pressure that has been built up over a period of time.
Right. I think there's a question from Gayansi, and it's also related to what you just spoke. And if you want to answer that, because I mean, this is maybe a profession that needs an upgrade every single day, or maybe keeping on yourself updated.
See, it is a continuous study. With the changes that are coming in the law, I mean, you have to keep yourself updated to be not so that you don't become outdated, in the system. So
Correct.
every day you have to know what new requirements are there, and a non-compliance is not tolerated, by any company. The
Correct.
company secretary is the first person to face the heat when there is a non-compliance. He's a key managerial person under the Companies Act, so he has to be extremely careful. Defaults, if there is a default by a company secretary, because of the company secretary, the directors come into trouble. The company secretary, the CFO, all key managerial personnel, they come into difficulty. So it's a very responsible job, and
Correct.
you have to completely update yourself, keep on updating yourself rather every day.
Correct. And I think you made a very important point regarding the legal compliance position of the company secretary in the organization. So what I understand, somebody who's a company secretary is somebody who is responsible for a lot of things. So if there are some anti-compliance things happening, and if that comes to the notice of the regulatory board, so would a company secretary be jailed for it? And I just want to understand.
Yeah, but company secretary can be prosecuted. There are imprisonments for a lot of defaults in the Companies Act, and that is why we have to ensure that we meet the timelines. The compliance is done 100%, so that these things are not do not affect the company. So it's a very high responsible job. I mean, it's not very easy. With the remuneration or the position, there is a lot of responsibility involved.
Absolutely. I was just coming to that I mean, some people feel that people sitting in big cabins and earning a lot of maybe
People sitting in
remuneration.
big cabins have heavy loads on their head.
Absolutely. That's the reason why they need a little bit of space around at least. So,
Right.
so it's very important that for everyone who's listening to us, that I mean, a role of a company secretary is quite a legal position. I think mandated by the law as well, that a company needs to have a company secretary. Is that right? Kiran?
Yeah, there's I mean, threshold when a company's capital crosses a certain limit. The company needs to appoint a company secretary. It becomes mandatory. Otherwise,
Right.
it's optional because there are not so many company secretaries as many companies that are registered. So every company cannot have a company secretary. That is not practically possible. Also,
True.
members maybe 50, 60,000 or something now, and there are lakhs of companies. So you can imagine.
True, and I think the also is also one of the reasons that the competition is so high. I mean, because the availability of positions are also low. But I think people should aspire to take up such a position because with high responsibility, you have higher results. What I understand. I want to take another question from the audience. Talks Vishal Shah's question regarding what is a combination of degrees would be best for somebody to succeed in the area of company secretary. What is your opinion?
The general best combination is CS and LLB, basically a legal degree. Many people would like to do finance, but CS and LLB is more useful because then you can work in a legal and secretarial department combined. Because generally many companies have a common department for legal and secretarial, and few companies have different also. So if you are a LLB, it only helps you to understand the laws better, understand some other laws as well. So which are not a daily requirement for a company secretary. So it makes your work a little better. And if you are in a department which has both the functions, then it is all the more good for the company secretary.
Right.
So
Uh,
CSLLB I would recommend is the best combination.
right. True. There's another question. Maybe it's not directly relevant, but at this point of time, when we are talking about the roles within the organization, so somebody has asked, Pyle has asked this question about company secretary's role and a lead communication officer. How are they different?
See, company secretary role is a legal role, whereas I understand with this question, lead communication officer would be something like a PR role, a public
Correct.
relations officer, or a corporate communication role. So that is only a role where people would, give information about the company to the public at large. But a company secretary role is a legal, basically role, which has to company secretary has to comply with the legal
Requirements.
requirements. So it's a
Right.
different role from the lead communication officer role.
Correct. I'm coming to one question that is there from the audience, and I think Payal only has asked this question. And I also want to understand the nature of this course because does company secretary can be done parallelly as a part-time like a course and only attempted as examinations as an entrance course, and that's enough? Or do you have a structure wherein you have a class program like maybe a BCom or an MCom? Is it something like that?
Company secretary basically is a distance learning course. It's not
Right.
a classroom course. People, I mean, it's only online, but the materials are provided to you by the institute, and you have to read those materials. There are some classes which are conducted all over India by the institute, which you can go to, but that's optional. If you require guidance and you want to study in a classroom, that's also available, but it's not a mandatory requirement. So this is a distance learning course which a person can take up and give examinations as and when he wants during the registration period.
Right. Right. I just want to extend this conversation for this question as well. That I mean, for CS, I mean, can somebody keep trying? Is that a function like that? Maybe for maybe some entrances, you can keep trying. For example, for CAT and all, I think they're like you can do it for
Yeah, you
seven
can keep
times.
trying. I think for CSIT also you can keep trying because there is no restriction on the number of attempts that you can do. But a
Correct.
person only gets fed up as to how many times should I try. So he should have the patience to try and still try.
Yeah,
So it's
I can.
I think the option is available.
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of questions flying in regarding the role, and I think Lloyd has also asked this question regarding what differences do you see about the CS role, India and abroad? Because I think a lot of companies work in India a little different fashion. I don't want to say anything else. I'll only say different way, and in abroad it works a little different. So, what differences do you see really?
See, CS in a person who has done CS from the Institute of Company Secretaries in India can work as a company secretary only in India. He cannot go
Correct,
abroad and work as a company secretary. But the institute
correct,
has a MOU with certain foreign countries where you can get the membership of that country's company secretary as well, institute as well. So you can give exams, 2 3 more exams, and study their courses, their curriculum, and then you can pass out and you can get membership of that institute also abroad. So that
correct,
option is our institute has done a bit for company secretaries who are interested in working abroad.
correct, correct. I think
So you have to
that's
first
also
become a CS in India, and then you can enroll for this abroad membership as well.
true, true. And now there's, and also this question I had in my mind as well as there's somebody from the audience as well who's asking this question that how has the COVID as well as the lockdown and the social distancing and not people not meeting together has affected this profession and how things have changed for you guys as company secretary and to still perform the legal compliances, so as to say. Yes, Chair.
So since the lockdown has happened in March, we have been working from home. We have done all our meetings through video conferencing, which is a new normal. Uh, but it was very difficult for us to initially start off where earlier we used to have only 1 or 2 directors coming through VC, but a total video conferencing meeting is where everybody is through VC. It's very different. Presentations have to be made online. Company secretaries basically have worked very hard during this pandemic time to ensure that the meetings have taken place on time, and
Correct,
even AGMs, which were not permitted earlier to be done through VC. AGM in the sense the annual general meeting of the shareholders of the company.
correct,
So have also been permitted to be done by VC now, video conferencing. So we many listed companies, you must have already seen Reliance, a lot of news on this. There's
right.
Reliance and other companies have done AGMs through VC. So company secretaries have really worked hard for this. Company secretaries are not that tech savvy, to be very frank, because we are sitting in the office and working. But this has been a new learning for everyone, how to conduct meetings through VC, and we have successfully done it in our organization. I'm very happy to
Correct.
say that.
That's nice to hear. I mean, everybody has adapted. I think it's also a good thing that all professions have taken up slowly the online mode because there was the need of the hour.
Yeah, because
That
earlier, company
yeah,
secretaries could never work without files.
correct,
Before this pandemic, we could
right.
never imagine not having, agenda papers in hand, meeting notes in hand. But we have managed to do all this during this pandemic, and it has been a very good experience for everybody. Very tiring as well.
But I think the digital signatures must be the new norm. Earlier, I think, as I understand, the legal stuff used to be getting signed by every single person.
Yeah, the digital signatures are not new for us. We have been using them for quite a long time now. Since 2006, when MCA started, e-filing of the forms and returns, we have been using the digital signatures. But now digital signatures are being accepted even on agreements, even on letters. People are asking us to put digital signatures and give it to them. So it's now become very acceptable. And
True.
you also know about digital signatures. I'm happy.
Actually, everybody is now moving on towards the thing that because when I look at legal compliance, I mean the biggest question used to be that sahab ka sign chahiye. That used to be the biggest challenge. And today साहब का साइन के लिए आसानी से भेजा जा सकता है. साहब को जब टाइम है तब साहब साइन कर सकते हैं
Stop
और भेज
sign
सकते
getting
हैं.
right.
So I just want to tell everybody who maybe joined a little late. We have Jenny Shah. She's a company secretary for a lot of years. She has pursued this profession. So whatever questions you have, you could put in the comment box. And we do these sessions just as a non-profit to share some knowledge with people so that people can get inspired, take up such professions. So do consider subscribing to this channel for future as well as other content that comes up. There's a question from Sunil who talks about, does a company secretary role also include some kind of advisory to the CEO or the CFO? So, what would you like to comment on that?
Company secretary basically is an advisor to the board of directors, not to the CFO or to the
Correct.
CEO. But yeah,
Right.
support is always required in terms of laws. I mean, compliance is a must. So even the CFO and CEO have to be updated on any approvals that have to be taken or anything that has to go to the board under the Companies Act or under the circulars of the regulatory authorities. So yes, advisor to the CEO, CFO, the whole organization as far as the Companies Act is concerned or the requirements of the laws are concerned.
Correct.
But
Correct.
basically, company secretary is the secretary to the board, so this is an
Yeah,
advisory load as far as board is concerned.
true. I have one question from Lloyd, and also when we spoke about maybe a company secretary has to do some more qualifications to get, I mean, eligible to work in other countries. But how far do you think the need of knowledge, I mean, for foreign laws is also needed? Maybe some Indian companies go for a merger or an acquisition or go for a licensing agreement with companies abroad. So how do you think, what's the role of a company secretary there?
See, basically, when you do anything with a merger or a tie-up with a company abroad, then consultants are appointed for playing an advisory role. But as a company secretary, yes, you need to read the basic laws of that country to understand that whole transaction. And we do liaison with companies abroad, which are subsidiaries or joint ventures, and we do try to understand their laws and to some extent. Sometimes some company secretaries even take up this as a responsibility to ensure that compliance is done abroad as well. But that is something where you have to take a very high responsibility because that is not your everyday job. You have to read those laws, understand, and then get into the compliance.
Sorry, guys, I was muted.
Yeah.
Coming back. Yeah, we are getting a lot of comments from people that it's quite an informative session that's going on. Do put in your comments, continue to put them so that we can answer them later as well. I have one question on my mind. When we talk about such a position like company secretary, uh, I also want you to share your experience of, I mean, sometimes taking the stand for the right thing. Because what I understand when you're dealing with the board of directors, those kind of people also have, I should not say big egos, but yeah, they have years of experience. So maybe they might not listen to you. They may not take your advice. So, what is your experience of handling such situations?
Yeah, the integrity, I mean, is a very important, skill that a company secretary skill or attitude that a company secretary should have because you always, board wants you to behave in a certain way, not allow you to speak at the right time when you are required to speak. So
Right.
you have to shut up at that time basically and then speak later. You have to ensure that the compliance is done. That's I think basic. Even in the boardroom, if the director wants to speak or he's speaking something wrong, still you have to keep your patience and keep yourself mute at that time. Maybe you can take the matter up later, so that the board meeting goes smoothly. Yeah, but
Correct.
if
Correct.
there's a compliance issue which needs to be raised before the board of directors, then a company secretary needs to speak up at that time and ensure that the board knows that this would not be in compliance. Rest you can leave to the board.
Correct. End of
You
the
have
day,
to put your stand, and then you can leave it to the board to decide.
correct. End of the day, you are the advisory to the board, that you are
Right.
making them aware about the legal risks that might come up with a certain decision. But end of the day, maybe what call they take is
It's their
with
own
them, right?
decision.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one question from Shashank talking about the course. I mean, where do you see yourself? Where do you see this course actually going in the upcoming years? Because what's happening is that the legal compliance stuff is getting more stricter as well. Let me put it this way, because of the internet, as well as a lot of record keeping and data analytics, data science helps people gather a lot of information. So, what do you think? Maybe the changes in the course you think, or something that should be added or removed? What's your opinion?
Course, I am not so sure because course I think has been made very exhaustive now. Company secretaries course has changed a lot over a period of time, and now they are trying to make it more practical for companies secretaries to understand the various aspects. Plus, company secretaries have to be completely updated all the time. So this course is the position of a company secretary is going to be more and more important in the future because of the laws, new laws that are coming up, the circulars, and the government has been very strong now, coming very strongly on the corporates. We see a lot of scams and a lot of things happening. So government is also not taking things lightly anymore. So role of a company secretary has become very important in an organization, and it's going to evolve further and further.
True. I'll take another question. That's from Vishal. That's talking about what would be your advices for people who are already CS, and for people who are practicing, or maybe somebody who's going through this process. So, what would be your advice to that?
I think the question is a little different. What Vishal wants to ask is whether
Yeah,
CS or practicing CS. I mean, there's a difference when when you do your company secretary course. You can either be working as a company secretary in a corporate, or there is another option when you can start your own practice, like how a CA does. So
correct.
company secretaries can start their own practice, can have their own firm where they take up projects, where they take up assignments or certifications, and they can start their own business. So there are two options. Advising is depends on how the person is. If a person is a likes to work in a corporate, likes to be very polished, and likes to meet the board of directors, then you have to look out and you have to take up the corporate. If you are a person who wants to run your own business, which you feel is better, work from your home, so you can take up that. It depends on the interest of the person. I always wanted to work in a corporate. When I finished my the course, when I was became a member of the institute, so I have done my training also in a corporate. Many people do it under a practicing company secretary, so then they can start their own firm. They learn work as a practicing company secretary rather than as a in a corporate.
Correct. So it will be more like a consulting role to a lot of other organizations as well, as I understand.
Right.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's one question on my mind, because when I look at a company secretary role, does it have, levels or of growth? For example, a growth chart. Because does it involve, for example, I'm somebody who gets through the entrance, I get through the process, and after the entrance, do they have something like maybe an interview process, something like that? Or if you're done with the entrance, you're an eligible CS, and companies could just interview and recruit you. Is that so?
No, see, entrance is only a first step. After that, you have to complete the course, which is a register for an executive and then level, and then there's a professional level.
Correct.
Then, after you finish both the levels, you have to do your training, compulsory 1 year training under either a practicing CS or in a corporate. Okay,
Okay.
once you finish your training, there are some other training that the institute conducts, and then you get registered as a member after completing all this. So once you get your membership after finishing your training, that is the time when you go for an interview as a maybe an assistant or an executive secretarial. That is the first step. You will not be appointed as a company secretary of some big company just when you are a fresher and out of your you only know the books. You don't know anything beyond that. So
Correct.
taking such a high responsibility at that stage is not possible. So you role evolves over a period of time. So like initially when you do only agendas and you don't know what is to be done, it is just a
Correct.
copy paste job initially.
Correct.
So a lot of thinking has to go. So you also your profession grows in that manner where then you start knowing what are the items which are supposed to come, what are the filings to be done. So
Correct.
then you can become an assistant company secretary, a deputy company secretary, then a company secretary of a company, small company, then a
Correct.
bigger company, then huge corporate. So that is the growth that you see. If you have some other qualification like an LLB or some other qualification, then you can take a joint role of a joint company secretary, legal advisor.
Correct.
There is no stopping as far as growth is concerned, but it only depends on the individual, how far the individual wants to go.
Correct. Understood. I want to ask you because I've taken most of the questions that are there in the audience. I have one question in my mind that what would be your advice to the young CS aspirants? I mean, what's your advice as being in the profession for such a long time? So, what's your advice to people who are aspiring to be maybe you or somebody who's a little more experienced like that? So, what is your advice?
I think sincerity towards your work and dedication is the only thing which can take you higher and higher. A company secretary's role is a very responsible role, which you have need to have a lot of dedication. You should have aspirations, but yeah, you should take things slowly. You first have to really learn everything and then go and take up a very high position in the organization.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, I think this question I think we addressed, or I'm not so sure. Would you like to throw some light about exactly the process? Like you talked about, somebody could do the entrance, and then you do a course, right? Once you qualify for the entrance, then you go for the course. So could you elaborate? I mean, how what is the length of it, or something like that?
So length depends on how many attempts you need.
Right.
If you pass out everything in first attempt, then you can complete it in 3 years time with the entrance, maximum 3 years. But if you are you have to give repeated attempts, then it can go to your 5 years, 6 years also. So it all depends on how you clear your exams. So
Correct.
basically, a 3 year period, a graduate maybe 2 years if all the exams are passed in the first attempt, then a graduate can complete in 2 years.
Absolutely. And I mean, coming to the final question that I have on my mind about the company secretary role, that I mean, when you're doing your job, I mean, what is the success that you see? I mean, what's the task that you complete successfully and you feel very good about in you doing your job? I mean, at end of that, you feel accomplished. What would be that?
See, basically, every time, every quarter, we have board meetings. Once we do our board meetings, we have a big relief if everything is gone smoothly. We have not got any firing in the board meeting. Another thing is that when we dispatch our annual reports to the shareholders, when everything happens on time legally, we are very happy with the output of the annual report. We feel very happy.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a lot of insight that we got from Jenny about the company secretary role. And what I'd like to also ask people that if you have any questions, then put in the comments. We could also answer them. There's one question from Glancia, and I think that's very important in any role. That what is, according to you, is the skill that's needed beyond the academics to succeed in a role of a company secretary?
See, basically, company secretary role involves a lot of drafting. So, drafting skills are very important. When you make your agenda, you make your minutes, you have to be very clear as to what you want to communicate. So, drafting skills are very very important as far as the company secretary is concerned. Another skill is the communication skill because you have to deal with directors and you have to deal with top senior level positions in the organization, and communication skills have to be very very strong. I think these are two skills which are very important as far as a company secretary. Other are all academic. I mean, smartness and intelligence. That all I mean is okay, but these things are very important, and you need to communicate well with people. There are a lot of stakeholders involved, as like shareholders. You have to be very good with the shareholders as well because they can take you for a ride. So, being very nice to shareholders is also very important. So communication skills are very, very important. Planning is another thing because legally
Right.
you're required to meet a lot of deadlines, and things should happen on time. Otherwise, it goes into the non-compliance mode. So
True.
planning things and executing in a planned manner is very, very important.
Yeah. On ending it on a lighter note, Jenny, you have any incident or any anecdote to share, maybe without taking names, of a good funny experience that happened with you during this role? I'm just saying, I'm just asking you.
No, no, nothing of that. I don't want to say anything on this because people will, relate somewhere or the else to what I'm
Yeah,
saying. But yeah,
they
so
would relate to your
I
current job only.
it involves high level people. So I want to stay away from this question.
Absolutely. There's one question from Shashank. What are your comments on the salary and remuneration? I mean, because people maybe who are new to this field, what could be the salaries and remunerations compared to maybe other roles within the organization? If you would like to comment.
See, initially you are not paid that well as far as the role is concerned because you are in a learning stage, and the market for the company secretaries is a little lower than the CA, the CFO, or so you're
Correct.
paid less than the CFO in all organization as a company secretary. But it's a good, going ahead, you find your remuneration to be attractive. It also depends on the individual, how much the individual, can get. There are company
Correct.
secretaries who are paid very high. There are few company secretaries who are not paid that well. So ultimately, it comes on the individual. It depends on the individual how the individual is. So
Correct.
your skill sets are what you can, sell in the market and get the remuneration. I feel it ultimately
Correct.
depends on the person.
True. So
But the
what
market
I
is
understand.
good.
Yeah. Yes, Jenny.
Yeah, the market is good that ways. I mean, professionally, you are paid well. Rather than being a graduate, I mean, of course, a professional will be paid much higher than a
Correct.
graduate.
Correct. So when I heard you take a comparison of the salary with the CFO, very close to the CFO, so that gives me an estimate for the people to know, whoever are watching, that it is a good, highly paid profession if you are doing well in your role. Because you hard work, I mean, you strive so hard to get to that position, so you deserve that position as well as remuneration. All that I can say. And
Right.
there's a final question that Glancy has asked, and I'd like to put up on the screens to maybe have the last question for this session. That what is your advice for the new generation on these careers? I mean, what would be your advice?
New generation knows about a lot of careers. I think they are well, versed. They find out everything from the net. We could never do that. But
Correct.
yeah, taking up a professional course and becoming a professional is something which the new generation should look at. Whether CA, whether CS, whether MBA, professional courses really, make you go higher in life rather than just being a graduate. There are a lot of other courses. I'm not saying only that, but now the kids have interest in a lot of other courses which are also good, media or singing, acting. There are a lot of
Correct.
other things to do. But yeah, professional courses do take you higher, and the kids should aspire to become professionals in life.
True. Thank you so much, Jenny, for this advice and so much insight in the area of career secretary. For everybody who's watching this video till maybe almost 38 minutes, do consider subscribing this channel, liking this video, and sharing to people who are maybe CS aspirants, so they will get a little insight from that. We have a couple of more programs coming up over the weekend, and also on Monday we have Joe Egan, so boxing partner Mike Tyson, coming over for a little chat. And also we have some career-based programs coming up in the week. So thank you so much for joining everyone together. And Alu Connect and Step Up keep doing this along the weeks. Completely a non-profit one, requesting some of the people that we know to come over, give their time to us. So thank you so much, Jenny. Do you have any last words for all of us before we leave?
Thank you, Gomal. It was very nice talking on this platform. I have come live for the first time. So thank you for giving me this opportunity, I'll say.
Cool, Jenny. Thank you so much for you.
Thank you.
I mean, coming over, because I think somebody else, come over sharing their knowledge. So thank you so much, and everyone, bye bye. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank
Do
you.
like.